Hi, my name is Mark Miller. I'm a volunteer with the Earth, Sea, and Space Center. This is a project in development near downtown Dover. And this state-of-the-art science center will feature large-scale aquariums, exhibits about our aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems, the weather, the climate. And the center has completed a number of studies and is raising funds for phase one. That would be architectural drawings and permits and hiring contractors, exhibit designs, et cetera. And we have a bunch of both fun and educational fundraising events coming up for you to enjoy. We've also been adopted by several companies through the Benevidi, can I say that? The Benevidi Giving Program platform. It's a Benevidi Giving platform, a national charitable platform that highlights worthwhile causes. Benevidi allows employees to donate and companies to match. So you should see if your company would like to get involved. Now, for more on all of this stuff and how to pronounce Benevidi, visit our website. That's earthseaspacemuseum.org. And now we are fortunate to welcome Captain Christopher J. Cassidy to our advisory board. Chris graduated from York High School in York, Maine. He's a former Navy SEAL. He completed combat missions in Afghanistan and received 2 Bronze Stars. After his SEAL service, Chris became a NASA astronaut, logging no fewer than 377 days in space. He's passionate about preserving the health of our planet, and he plans to do more in the area of environmental education now that he's retired from NASA. So now I'd like to turn things over to Crystal Kent, the chair and founder of the Earth, Sea, and Space Center, to learn more about Chris and his thoughts on the Earth and its future. Crystal.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. So as Mark just mentioned in the introduction, you are a former Navy SEAL. What led you to decide to become an astronaut? What was the appeal of space?
Oh, well, first of all, thanks, Crystal, Mark, both of you, appreciate your time. Crystal, you're not in the scene. Are you there? I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I saw your shoulder. But great to be with you guys. And as a local guy from York there, and I played youth hockey in Dover. It's just nice to be connected with you guys. But
I appreciate it.
So I remember as I forget what year, sophomore maybe, as a York High School student, the teachers and the staff rolling in TVs into the lunchroom, and on it was the news of the Challenger disaster. Now, that was my first real thought of astronauts. I didn't think about being one myself, but I remember kind of putting it together that, oh, wow, there's real people on that thing. And appreciating a little bit more what space exploration was all about. But that was about it, other than, you know, more mourning for the loss like every other person in the country. But as I went through the process to go to college, none of the military or Navy or the SEALs or astronauts, none of that was on my mind. It was just a way, how can I pay for school? And I was a decent athlete, but not enough to get a scholarship in anything. I was a decent student, but not enough to get some full ride to anywhere. And the military service academies jumped out at me as a way to pay for school. And so that was really the path that sent me off into the Navy. And there's a whole bunch of story there, but because I was in the Navy, all the different opportunities I learned about as I went along, to include about when I was 25 or 26 years old, realizing that anyone can apply to be an astronaut. You just have to be a US citizen, have some degree requirements, and that's about it. And it eventually worked out.
Well, good thing that it did, because you certainly had an incredible, career. Now, I know you spent countless hours on the International Space Station.
Somebody counted them. I did. Yeah.
And I have a few questions from kids that about your experience there, and I have some more serious questions too, but I thought you might appreciate some of these. One kid wanted to know, how did you brush your teeth in zero gravity?
So, the questions that are most often asked are the things that are very relatable to our everyday human things on the ground, like how, because you understand the process as a person who's brushed your teeth, whether it be 8 years old or 58 years old person, it's the same process, and it doesn't change in space. The only difference is at the end of brushing, where does the stuff go?
Right.
At home, you spit it into the sink and you run the water and clean your toothbrush out. We don't have a sink, so you either swallow it or spit it into a tissue or something. Pretty much everybody I know just swallows the stuff. It makes you put less toothpaste on, which
I guess it would.
and you know, occasionally if you put too much on, we've all been there, and the toothpaste is dripping all on your hand, and you generally try to avoid that. But yeah, you swallow it and then take a little bit of water from a drink bag and clean out the bristles of your brush. The other interesting thing is shaving.
Oh,
Some astronauts prefer, male astronauts, I'm talking about shaving your face. Some astronauts prefer electric razor. I didn't, because the little fine hairs don't really stay in it and they float all around and get in your eyes. So using a straight edge at home, razor blades are expensive, so you generally get as long use out of them as you can. Up there, there's no way to rinse the junk out of the blade, so it's no matter what, it's a one-time use of the blade and then you throw it away.
oh my gosh.
Wow.
Well, another question was, how did you sleep? Did you have to like belt yourself in so you didn't, float away when you were sleeping at night?
Yeah, exactly. We take each person's private space, your bedroom, if you will, is about the size of a refrigerator. And
Oh,
you tie your sleeping bag to one of the walls, and then you just get in the bag and zip it up. And you're essentially free floating, but you're constrained by, whatever the diameter of that sleeping bag. They are special bags in that there's holes for your arms to slide out if you desire. The process of going to sleep is basically the same. It does take a little bit getting used to, because there's no pillow, there's no sensation
oh, right.
sending a signal to your brain that you're relaxing. You've all been there at home where you just sort of snuggle into the covers, you just slide into the pillow and you just relax. That doesn't happen. So it takes a couple weeks to get used to just getting in a sleeping bag, zipping it up and falling asleep.
Sounds like you're like all like bats up there, kind of hanging along.
There's a funny story on my very first mission on the space shuttle. On the first day, so we launched successfully. We're in orbit. We've been working for a handful of hours. Now it's time to go to bed. And I woke up about 2 or 3 in the morning and had to pee. And so I had to make my way to the toilet. And that was, keep in mind, I'd been in space for 5 hours.
Oh,
And,
geez.
there's a sea of arms dangling from the walls and the ceiling of my other 6 crewmates, because the shuttle's not very big. And so everybody's in this one little confined space, making my way over to the toilet with a small glow of a nightlight. It was pretty spooky.
I can just imagine. Now, I know that when you were in space, you actually ran a road race while in space, did you not? I think you ran it in concert with some other kids or people here on Earth that were also running it at the same time.
Yeah, in my hometown in York, they have always this race called the 4 on the 4th, 4 miles on the 4th of July, and it's a what do you call it? A path that starts at the high school and kind of goes around the beach and comes back to the high school.
Yeah.
And the high school team asked me what my pace was. I told them, and then they ran the race, or ahead of time, they ran the course with a little camera at the pace that I told them. And so when it came time for the real race, they hit go and the real people started running, and I hit play on the treadmill with the city streets of York playing in front of me. And
Very
we
cool.
basically ran it simultaneously.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that's very cool that you were able to, engineer all that. Now, you were the 500th person to go into space, which I think is, an incredible milestone. And I know that you did 6 spacewalks during your time as an astronaut. And I have to ask what that was like, because when I think of only a slim tether line keeping me, safe from drifting off into the infinity of space, I would find that incredibly unnerving. What was it like for you the first time you had to step out the door like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. The another relatable thing for spacewalking is probably watching a rock climber ascend a cliff. You generally don't do that without ropes, a safety
Right.
line, and we are the same as astronauts. So we do clip in a safety line when we open the hatch, and it has a small retraction force of about 3 pounds of pull. So if you did slip off with your hands, it would pull you back like a dog leash to
Okay.
where it's hooked. But the primary thing is always have one hand on a handrail. That hook is the secondary backup, and the tertiary backup is a small little jetpack in our backpack that has a finite amount of compressed nitrogen that and a gimbal orientation system. So if you're tumbling off, you're tumbling at some rotation rate, and you pull this thing out, it'll stop your rotation, and then you can refix yourself to the correct orientation and then drive yourself back. But that is something that has never been used, and is really a third string kind of keep you safe type of system. The first time I opened the hatch on a spacewalk, it really got my attention. You're going around the world every 90 minutes, so that means 17,500 miles an hour, which is a big number, but a number that you can kind of almost picture. That equals 5 miles a second. So you see this speed visually. It's not like if you're in a highway and you roll your window down on your car, stick your hand out, your hand gets blown back because of the air molecules. There are no air molecules. So that speed has no physical feel. It's all visual feel as you're looking and you see, oh, there's New York City. Oh, there's Cape Cod. Oh, there's the coast of Maine. And oh, off in the horizon is Europe. That is all happening really, really fast. So that speed that you see, the height distance that we're 250 miles up, all of that is sending signals to your brain that is not normal. Like
go back inside.
Yeah, like you're in a tall skyscraper and you have your toes over the edge and there's no handle, no handrail. So you're doing everything to fight this sensation of should not be here.
Right.
What we do to combat that is a lot of training in a huge pool in Houston called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. It's basically a gymnasium-sized pool with the space station mock-up on the pool floor. And we train and spend hours and hours and hours in that thing, to the point of, that's what we tell first-time spacewalkers. Just pretend you're in the pool. Like, don't get distracted with the earth below you. Just look at this piece of metal right in front of you, and it really works. You can tell yourself, I'm just in the pool. Off to my left is a scuba diver who's going to help me, but that person's not there. That's the only difference. You're on your own. Well, you and your buddy are on your own. So I think it's a long answer for you, Crystal, because I could talk for a whole entire hour just on that. But it's very rewarding. It's very special. It's hard work. It's scary, but it's super, super cool being out on a spacewalk.
Well, I'm glad that, there are people who are brave enough to do it and to keep helping us push the envelope in terms of space exploration. I don't know if I could have convinced myself that I was in the pool, but I'm glad you were able to. Now, I've heard, other astronauts say that when you're up in space and you're looking down on planet Earth, that it's a profoundly moving experience. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how that made you feel, and did it ever become commonplace? I mean, you obviously spent a lot of time in space, or was it something that every time kind of, took your breath away?
Every time is special. Every day that you're there, you feel privileged to have it. I think that the world would be better off if every human had 5 minutes to look out the window, because it just kind of helps you put things in perspective. And each person that has that view has a slightly different experience. Whether if you're super religious, you become more so. If you're not religious, I don't think in my experience with talking to my colleagues that it makes somebody one way or the other. But whatever your beliefs are, I think it strengthens them. For me, it was about Earth. As a kid growing up, I never paid attention to climate or Earth or, what the global sea temperature means. I just didn't understand that. Even as a young adult, I didn't quite appreciate all that. I think I knew, as a person who likes science, I understood it, but I didn't have an appreciation until I saw with my own eyes Earth below me, and the skinny little tiny layer off in the horizon that is the atmosphere, and that is keeping everybody that's an astronaut on Earth alive. All 8 billion, 7, or almost 8 billion, I think now, people alive. And you come to realize that just like the space station that we're in is a mechanical system that requires maintenance, and both preventative and corrective maintenance, so is Earth. And you look down and you see the Amazon burning and giant clouds of smoke and coming into the sky. You can see, massive events like hurricanes and tornadoes. We now can, and after multiple missions, you can see visually glaciers melting. And so the whole experience made me very much value what Earth offers all of us.
Well, I know that I had read that after one of your missions, when you saw the Amazon burning, that really got to you, that you said it was very visible from space, how much of the rainforest was being destroyed, and that motivated you to go on a bike trek through the Amazon, I believe with your brother and another scientist colleague. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, maybe some of the specifics in terms of, how long was the trek and what were the conditions like, was it hot, bugs, snakes, and so forth, but also, what you saw there in terms of the destruction when you were up there, up and close to it.
Well, my good friend from Brazil, we're the same age, and but we didn't meet until after I had been an astronaut, and I was in Brazil speaking to some people about space flight, and that's when we kind of connected. And he was showing me this coffee table book in his house with old school pictures that looked like him as a young guy. It turns out it was riding a bike through these crazy trails and things in the jungle. So I was asking him, his name's Osvaldo. Osvaldo, what's going on here? When I was 25 years old, my buddy and I, we rode our bikes in a portion of the Amazon, along the Amazon River in the Amazon jungle in the state of Para in Brazil. And oh, wow, that's super cool. And said, if you're ever going to do that again, let me know. I'd love to join you. Well, be careful what you ask for. Because a couple of years later, he called me and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this next September. Would you like to come? And turns out I was in between space flights and had the ability to take a significant chunk of vacation. I had a month built up, and I took a whole month off in between projects and things, And as you guys know, life doesn't always allow you to do something like that, but it did in this case, and I was fortunate enough to have opportunity line up with availability. And so we went down there and we rode our bikes. It was, I think, so it was 1,000 kilometers. So somewhere 600 and whatever that is, 620 miles maybe, through some trail, mostly trail, some improved, some unimproved parts of the jungle. And we carried with us, we calculated how much food we'd need for the whole thing. We carried with us probably the calories for 50% of that. My buddy, being from Brazil and speaks the language and had been in the area before, he knew that there's little villages and shops along the way where we can buy beans and rice and chicken and armadillo, which made me very sick one day. So that was a neat experience as well, just to stop at these little mom and pop shops and get food and just be there in the jungle. We slept in hammocks along the way. A couple nights we rode our bikes for 3. I was gone from America for 4 weeks. We were actually on the bikes for 3 weeks, and the balance of the time was just getting there and coming home. It was an incredible experience. And the final thought I have on there was the really unique perspective of having seen the Amazon on a large scale from the space station, and then seeing it for that stretch of time from 6 foot high, my eyeballs. It was really kind of fascinating.
Well, I've heard the Amazon described as Earth's lungs because the vast jungle is responsible for so much of our oxygen supply. And yet most of us, I think, are unaware of how imperiled this incredible resource is. And I wondered, after your trek and after your, exposure and everything, do you have any thoughts on, what we can do or what is being done to try to halt the destruction of the rainforest?
That's a great question. There's lots of people studying that. In talking about this in detail with my friends, I think they all believe that there has to be some sort of economic part to the solution. If you just say, hey,
Stop.
people that are looking for where your next meal's coming from, don't do this. They're gonna be like, okay, I get it, but I gotta pay for food somehow.
Right.
So if you incentivize the safe usage of the area, and part of it, I learned this is cattle ranching pays more. They get money to put cattle on pieces of land, and some farmer that owns a bunch of jungle can't put cows on a bunch of jungle. So the fastest way to clear the land is to burn it. And then they can put cattle on there, and big companies come in and pay the people who are perhaps struggling for food and money to now they can monetize their land. So there's got to be some sort of economic part to the solution. I don't know what that is. I don't know all the nuances. I just have seen a little bit of behind the curtain. I don't think that global solutions are entirely going to be solved by people's goodwill. People's desire to do good. It helps and it gets the energy going, but ultimately there's got to be tied into the economy somehow. I don't know what that is. I'm not a politician. I have no desire to be, but it requires people to cooperate and come and play well together on that regard.
Clearly complicated solutions for a complex problem.
Yeah, complicated solution for a complex problem. Yep.
Well, my last question for you is talking about what's next. I mean, you've been a soldier, you've been an explorer, you've been to space. I'm kind of expecting you to say that you're signing up now to visit the Marianas Trench or something like that. But what's next on the horizon for you, Chris?
Well, I'm wearing this tie today, partly because of you guys, but in all honesty, I had a board meeting for my real job, which is the president of a Medal of Honor museum. We're building a museum, and Mark, in your comments there, I can appreciate the fundraising ahead of you, and that's what we're in the throes of that right now here in Texas. So that's kind of the first part of what's next for me. I retired from the Navy and from NASA. A lot of people don't realize astronauts, if you're a civilian, you are a government civil servant and you get paid by that pay structure. And if you're military, you just retain your military pay and you're accruing towards retirement, and you work as an astronaut, as a military astronaut. We all do the same thing. So I never wore my uniform while I was there. But my pay and benefits came from that. So then when I retired from the Navy, I was also leaving NASA last summer, and I've been in this role for about a year. I don't see myself as being a museum operator for the rest of my life. I'm learning new things, which I like. I think it's healthy to be a new guy or gal every now and then, and it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you from getting complacent, keeps you learning new stuff. And that's the mode I'm in right now, learning a little bit of the business side of things, which as a government employee, I never really had. I'll be honest with you, if there was a commercial space company that came knocking at my door and said, hey, we need experienced astronauts to do X, Y, or Z, boy, I'd probably be jumping up with my hand raised, because it's just really a special thing. I do miss the opportunity to go to space. But I had a wonderful career, had 3 awesome space flights, about a year of my life up there, 10 spacewalks. I just, I'd have no problem with walking away and letting the next generation of astronaut enjoy it.
Well, I think I'm sure that somebody will come knocking at your door. I can't believe they're going to let you escape for too long, but I think that's wonderful about the museum. Now, where in Texas is that going to be located?
In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it's a giant metroplex, and folks from New England may not realize that both those cities are sort of blended all into one big, massive structure of concrete and roads. And right in the middle is a town called Arlington, a community called Arlington. Turns out it's the 48th largest city in the country. I didn't know that until just last week. But that's where the Texas AT&T Stadium, the Dallas Cowboy Stadium is. Texas Rangers baseball stadium is there. There's a Six Flags amusement park, and about 8 miles from the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. So it's a really good location for a national museum, a lot of flow through with foot traffic for the sporting events and those kind of things. So that's where we are located.
Well, I think it sounds like a tremendously worthy cause, and I hope people will see this broadcast, will check it out and find out how they can support it. I want to thank you so much for being with us today and for being on our advisory board. And we look forward to having your input on exhibits and programs as we move to our next phase, and hopefully getting to have you join us in person at some point. So
Super.
thank you so much.
Look
And
forward to it.
I'll let you sign us off here.
Yeah, and I want to thank you as well, Chris. Really appreciate your time. And for those watching, you can help make the Earth, Sea, and Space Center a reality. You can donate, you can attend events. Many of them are fundraisers, of course, but also very fun and educational. Get involved with the center. You can join our board. Always appreciating new talent there, that's for sure. And if you want to find out more, you can call 603-436-7778. That's 603-436-7778. Or you can email through the website, which is earthseaspacemuseum.org. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.